Welcome to The Little Things You Hear Together, the podcast that dives deep into Broadway cast albums to figure out how they work, what they reveal, and why some of them claim a bigger piece of our collective brains than others. My name is Alex Asp, and my guest today is Kyle Marshall, host of the Sondheim podcast, Putting It Together. Welcome, Kyle.
Thank you so much for inviting me on.
I mean, it only seemed fair after I've been on your podcast a few times. I'm very honored to have such a veteran that I've been listening to for quite a while on my new little fledgling podcast.
I have to say, not to interrupt you here, I think the last time you were on, it was technically your fifth time that you were on the podcast, I think. And I didn't realize that when you were a guest, so I didn't mention it.
I thought it was fourth. Maybe it was fifth. I don't know.
I could be bad at math, too. I don't know.
Well, I'm very glad to have you here today with me. And what album are we discussing?
We are discussing Little Shop of Horrors from, I believe, 2003, the Broadway revival in 2003.
Yes. So this, funny enough, has a similar trajectory to Assassins from the same season, where there was an off-Broadway original production, and then 15 to 20 years later, a Broadway production that's classified as a revival, and then 15 years later, an off-Broadway production again. So it's kind of funny how these things work in cycles.
Both deal with grisly murders.
Yes.
So it all works.
With kind of different tones, though.
Very much so.
For anybody who is not familiar with Little Shop of Horrors, music is by Alan Menken. Lyrics are by the late, great Howard Ashman. And what is the basic story of the Little Shop of Horrors?
The most succinct description I suppose I could give is that you have a main character of Seymour who works in a florist's shop, comes across a Venus flytrap, discovers that it likes to drink his blood. It starts to grow bigger and bigger, and eventually is proven to become like a sentient alien type creature that craves on human blood / human bodies, and convinces Seymour to go and start killing people so that Seymour can get everything that he wants. It's your classic B-movie plot.
So your basic lighthearted musical comedy.
Correct, yeah.
Yes.
I should say based on a 1960 film.
Yes. And so it is a cult classic that was not especially popular when it first came out, but especially with the movie that was made a few years after the original off-Broadway production, it has become somewhat of a classic despite its strange, macabre story.
Mm-hmm.
And it is a wonderful show, wonderful movie, and anything else that we can get from Howard Ashman is always a good thing.
I do think that is part of the reason why it becomes so big. I mean, the movie obviously is the biggest reason, I think. However, with the Disney Renaissance and Howard Ashman and Alan Menken being such a big part of that, I do think people went back and kind of reappraised it even more so to be like, oh, this is like stands with that level. And I'm sure we'll bring it up about how a song from this show and a song from The Little Mermaid are basically the exact same song.
Yes. So as we're going through this, kind of looking ahead to the end of the episode, we will be grading the album on the quality of the score, the performances, the storytelling, the recording quality, the album artwork, all these different things that go into a cast album experience. So as we start to discuss the cast album, we'll keep those things in mind. Any overarching thoughts about the album as a whole or the show as a whole before we start going into individual tracks?
Before I answer your question, I just have a quick sidebar. Have you seen the original 1960 movie?
I have not seen that original movie, no. Have you?
I won't bring up a lot of it. I'm just saying that it's so interesting how this show adapts that material and stuff that it changes and modifies and things that it keeps exactly the same. Mostly for the better, because I don't actually think that movie is all that good.
Yeah.
But, there's some things to keep around for it, I suppose. I will say Jack Nicholson plays one of the dentists. He's a sadist. He goes and likes getting pain from the dentist. So it's interesting to see one of his very early performances in that film.
And then they took that out of the musical, but then added it back in with Bill Murray for the movie version, which is a fun little twist there.
Correct. Yeah, weird.
So they're like, maybe we should have included that in the first place. Let's bring it back now.
Yeah, right. So, yeah, okay, so as far as this show goes, I will have to be very upfront. I think one of the nice things about being invited onto this show where we discuss cast albums is that is primarily the way that I engage with Broadway in total. I live in Canada on the west side of the country. I get to New York pretty rarely nowadays, and so I either have to wait for Broadway across Canada to choose to do a certain show and bring it here 5 or 6 years after the season it debuts in, or watch a performance from the Tony Awards But for the entirety of the show, like my real way to engage with these shows is going to be through cast albums. So I have not seen this show, meaning like this version of Little Shop of Horrors. I've seen actually multiple versions of Little Shop of Horrors in stage form, but this 2003 revival, all I've done is basically listen to this cast album and try and come up with my opinions thusly. I will say this. I think that there are some of the voices here that are really, really good, which I enjoy listening to. The biggest drawback for me, whether is or isn't, I'm not 100% sure if it is. I really don't love the actual backing music for it. A lot of it sounds to me like MIDI files. Like it just doesn't sound like an actual orchestra is playing these songs, which I always find to be a bummer, especially when you have such great talent that's singing the material to not actually be backed by the actual music itself. In comparison, because I have listened to the original off-Broadway cast album almost my entire life now at this point. That was one of the early Broadway albums I actually bought as a teenager. And I know it so well that I always like default to be like, well, that's the way you have to sing it. And I always have to like try and get out of my head with that and be like, well, let's just hear this as it's interpreted. And so there's Hunter Foster as Seymour and Carrie Butler, right? As Audrey.
Yep, those are our main two.
So both of them do, I think, a really fine job. I think there's a lot of cool character actors. And so when we get into the ratings, I guess I'll put a finer point on it. I enjoyed the album, but I wouldn't say I was in love with this recording either.
Yeah, and that kind of seems to be the general feeling about this production as a whole. You would think for being such a beloved show by this point that it would have had a bigger impact on the Broadway season, and it's largely been forgotten. Partly, I think, because the original off-Broadway cast album was so seminal for many people, and then the movie soundtrack being quite the hit as well for, people who are into show tunes. It definitely had a lot to live up to. And it almost seems like no matter what it could have done would not have been received super great just because people had their own ideas of what they wanted it to be. To whatever degree that is fair or not is a different story. But I think, between Hunter Foster, Carrie Butler, and Douglas Sills, you've got quite the cast.
Yeah, you have such a cast here. And I was just going to say, like, the hard part is that there are certain shows that come out where there's such an iconic performance that happens that it just takes decades for there to be like a new reinterpretation of it, or people just do a mimicry from here until eternity because it's like, I'm not going to try and do something different. I would say that Gypsy kind of fell into that category for decades, where it was like, well, Ethel Merman can do this, but I don't know if anyone else is able to pull this off as well. And for me, Ellen Greene just is Audrey. Like she just performs to such a degree that people either do like a mimicry of her to a certain point, or I don't know, they always come off as like Ellen Greene light to me, where I don't think anyone has been able to truly come out and be like, oh, this is a revelation in the character of Audrey. It's always just like, well, Ellen Greene is kind of the number one.
Yeah, it's, I think, a doubled effect because she is so perfect for the role, and then she played it for such a long time in various productions across the country.
Yeah.
It's hard to think of another actress and character that are so linked as the two. I think it's just iconic.
I only have one that I can give you as a suggestion, which is going to be Carol Channing in Hello, Dolly.
Yeah. And again, she kept coming back to that role for a long time after, and it was a good fit for her. So
long time.
Yeah. I mean, she started in 1964 and she did a 1995 Broadway revival of it. That's a long time to be playing the same person.
Yeah. But how about you? What do you think about this album?
So I have been a big fan of the off-Broadway album for a long time, but the main comparison for me is still the movie soundtrack. Of the tracks that were not included in the movie, only one do I really miss. But I think the off-Broadway, and then they kept with it for the Broadway production, is very committed to the pastiche of the kind of 50s doo-wop vibe. And I think the movie was a little bit more free with that. And there are certain moments that I feel land better when you're not sticking so completely to that pastiche style, especially in Suddenly Seymour. But overall, Hunter Foster enunciates very, very well throughout this entire album. And there are words that I can't understand anybody else singing, but him, it's crystal clear. And I do appreciate that, especially if this is what you're going off of to understand what the show is. It's good to get the words as they were written, which is not always the case.
By the way, talking about iconic roles. This is not really a criticism, but I do have to say, as I was listening to this, it's like, oh, it's Bobby Strong singing Little Shop of Horrors.
Yeah, and this is what would have been 2 years after that. So he's still very much, not even time for his voice to have matured and sound different. He is still right there next to Urinetown. And Carrie Butler being right out of
Yeah.
Hairspray the year before. They are both fairly early in their careers, actually. Douglas Sill is kind of the veteran of the group, having done things like Scarlet Pimpernel in the 90s. And for him, it's just unfortunate that I will always think of Steve Martin as the dentist, and it's hard to compete with that because he's so ridiculous.
I know it's the thing with movies. Sometimes there's parts that get so iconic in that case, and like in the movie version of Little Shop, Frank Oz was basically just able to call in all his favors. So even for bit parts, you have like John Candy and Steve Martin and Bill Murray,
And John Belushi, yeah.
just to come and do a day's work and then like knock it out of the park.
Yeah, I find it very strange to think of Frank Oz as the director, but he really did have a lot of the connections and the right kind of sensibility to bring something this strange to the screen. And I think you can start to imagine what other directors would have done with it and what a different movie it could have been.
Yeah, and I would actually say for the worst, like you could imagine around that time, like a Tim Burton trying to do a version of this, and I just think, even though he would have stayed with the practical in the mid '80s as well, I just think would be the wrong tone for this material, where Frank Oz is able to have that comedic touch. His connection with puppetry, doing all the Muppet stuff that he's done in the past, I think was kind of like one of those like perfect marriages where it's just like, oh, this is like such a slam dunk, like obvious choice to bring aboard.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's also weird to think about what else was going on around this because he had just finished, I think, The Muppets Take Manhattan when he started work on this project. So that's,
Yeah.
there are weird ways you can see the similarities between the two and the major differences.
And then somewhere right around here, he would have doing Dirty Rotten Scoundrels too. So
Yeah, I guess that would have been fairly close to this. Maybe probably right after this, I guess.
mhm.
In general, since we'll probably approach it a little bit here and there throughout the episode, the movie does have a big difference from the stage show near the end, especially in that the stage show has a very dark ending. Have you seen the filmed version that they did of that original ending?
Yeah, weirdly enough, I own the movie. It's one of my favorites that I watch. I think I've only ever seen the movie with that ending in it, to be honest with you.
Really?
I don't know if I've ever seen like the positive happy ending. I have because I've watched it on YouTube, but I've never watched the movie with the happy ending
Okay,
tacked
interesting.
on to the end.
It is wild how elaborate it is, and then they ended up not using it. I totally
Mhm.
understand why they didn't and why audiences
right.
did not like the stage ending in a film context. But if anybody has not seen it, I definitely recommend searching it on YouTube and checking it out. It is a wild ride.
I just think it fits the source material better, personally.
Yeah, I definitely understand both sides of people arguing for either ending in the movie context. I'm happy with what we got from the movie and having the alternate available to us as we look back and can appreciate what might have been.
Yeah. Before we move on to talk very specific about this album, I think you might be able to fill this in better than what I'll know, because the other major production of Little Shop that I know of is still running in New York. They really keep doing like their stunt castings, it seems like every couple of months. When does that fall into the trajectory of Little Shop's history?
So that production started in 2019 before having its COVID hiatus, obviously. I actually was able to see that production in January of this year with Sherry Renee Scott as Audrey and
Nice.
Nicholas Christopher who was the
that's great.
understudy for Sweeney Todd last year as a very good Seymour. And it is a very well done production. It is tight. It is set up in a way to support people coming and going. And I think it was the first time Sherry Renee Scott was the first alternate take of the character of Audrey that I was intrigued by and enjoyed. Whereas Ellen Green, the vibe overall for me is she seems dumb, but is actually smart. For Sherry Renee Scott's version, she seems
right.
smart, but is actually dumb. And so she found some different laughs than
Oh, that's fun.
is typically done. And I found it interesting that in a show that I've known for so long and that so many people have done, she's still able to find those beats that are more unique to her and work so well for her.
Can we also put the foot down here? The proclamation, the ruling, I suppose. This is like everyone has said the same thing, so I'm not saying anything new. but how I am very strongly against hot Seymours.
Yeah, it is. Even so, they did make a cast album of the original revival cast for this current production that's running, and Jonathan Groff is Seymour. And even listening to it, you can tell that this is too
Right.
pretty a man to be Seymour. You don't even have to see him to know this just does not feel right. This voice is too creamy and delicious, and Seymour is supposed to be weird and quirky. And I love Jonathan Groff dearly, but it just is not the right take. Whereas I do appreciate that Hunter Foster is.
But just it's the wrong person for the wrong role. It's like it's the exact thing that happened in the 90s a lot, at least, where it was like really hot woman or really attractive woman, but she has glasses on, so we're supposed to think that she's not attractive. And it's like, what are we doing here? What are we trying to pull?
Yeah, quite the shortcut of, oh, we're just going to say this is true, so now it's true. And you're going to be fine with that, right? Okay, cool, moving on. To some degree, that was also the Fosca Donna Murphy of it all. To plug your other podcast, your main podcast, everybody should go listen right now. Passion, the season is streaming currently.
That's right.
All right, so we can keep jumping into general things as we go along here through the tracks, obviously. But the show starts off with the prologue going into the Little Shop of Horrors theme.
Whoever the narrator is, I just want to call out how much I love their voice. This great narrator voice.
Yeah, it's hard to walk the line of you don't want to be too flippant and comical sounding because it does want some heft, but if you go too melodramatic, it can be a bit much. And I think I forget who it is that does the narration for this, but it is very well done.
On the 21st day of the month of September, in an early year of a decade not too long before our own, the human race suddenly encountered a deadly threat to its very existence.
As far as the intro song goes, this is another little criticism I'm going to throw at this one, and this is, I know, just personal taste for the most part. I am just not that big of a fan of vocal runs. I like the people hitting the note and like hitting that note. I don't need to like up and down and all over the place type of thing, but I feel like I'm at the losing battle on my hand for a lot of people love that. I just don't.
I appreciate it when it is done well in a way that feels natural to the character, and it's not just the actress or actor showing off. Most of the time, it's just the actor showing off. I think there are a few moments in this show where, especially with the urchins, I'm okay with it. It feels earned. And then there are a lot of moments that are definitely more, all right, you just wanted to make your own take on a property that people know very well. You can scale it back now. We're okay. We understand. You're talented.
To truly bounce all over the place here, I almost apologize I'm going to bring this up, but the other thing I know about this production in particular is that the urchins are a part of the opening to the Tony Awards that year that were hosted by Hugh Jackman, which is one of my favorite Tony Award openings, the one night only presentation or riff.
I say use them however you can. They are very talented. They are so good at blending with each other, and however much of it is them versus the sound mixer, they sound fantastic together on this album.
They do.
Some of the other recordings of this score, the balance is not quite right, and it's unfortunate because it makes it sound just, not quite in tune because you're having the wrong part be dominant, and it is a disservice to the singers, but this one was definitely done very well. So one thing that drives me crazy about the original off-Broadway cast is when they're doing the look out, look out, look out, look out.
Shing-a-ling, what a creepy thing to be happening. Look out, look out, look out, look out.
And they say it the exact same way every time. This is not that. They at least do have some variation.
Hey, look out, look out, look out, look out.
But I want it to go even farther. I want it to be more like in the movie where each lookout has its own personality and it feels like a mini story that they're telling you by directing you to, look over there, now over here, now over there.
What a creepy thing to be happening. Look out, look out.
And I would love more of that in more versions.
Yeah, there is this subtlety that you can get into with different performances. I think people get so used to like to back up. Albums are great to be introduced into the show, but I think that then sometimes people are afraid to put in their own like little juice, I guess, for lack of a better word. And you're right. I think that there are interesting acting choices that the lyrics allow you to go into that can bring out more nuance, more emotion, that sort of thing. So I think it should be applauded when people find something new that they can do in a well-worn song.
Yeah, I think Howard Ashman is definitely in that upper echelon of lyricists with Stephen Sondheim, that there is so much complexity there that you have a lot of choices you can make to turn the character into your own without having to break it and rebuild it from scratch. There's just a lot of complexity already baked in that you can dive into, which is makes me all the more sad that we did not have more time with Howard Ashman to get more lyrics from him.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I've done no research into this, but do you know of any like projects that he may or may not have actually been about to work on?
I'm not sure beyond the fact that they were in the middle of working on Aladdin when he died, and that's why Tim Rice came in and finished up with the rest of the lyrics. There might be information out there that I have not come across. I've not specifically looked for it, but there's also a decent amount that I think we should give more attention to that's out there that he did before he died. I think Smile is quite clever and a lot of fun, and even the first collaboration of Alan Menken and Howard Ashman, God Bless You, Mr. Rosewater, is a weird show, but it's got some fun songs, especially when it comes to the wordplay. And I appreciate the Encores did a recording of that a few years ago.
Yeah, that's the one that I have not engaged with at all. I have like I don't even really know what that show's about, even though I've heard that name of the show for years and years and years. I will say that Smile just had a like short run at an off-Broadway location in New York.
Yes, I'm very jealous that I was not able to see it because that would have been so much fun.
Yeah, that's a show that I think has become actually even more relevant nowadays than when it was when it first came out.
So the next song is Skid Row or Downtown. I don't have a whole lot specific to say about this. It is well done. It is well balanced. Again, it's very easy for sound engineers to highlight the wrong things in other versions of this recording. But I think the balance of the urchins and the principal characters and the ensemble is pretty good to get a good feel of what's important at the time as they're singing.
This is such a great song to essentially open the show with. Like it's such a up tempo, but also kind of dark song that kind of shows you all the things that the characters are really dealing with or struggling with. And it just ends in such a fun way where it's like, I am kind of totally into this show. I just think this is like a masterclass of how to write a true like opening number to like welcome you into the plot.
Show me how and I will, I'll get out of here. I'll start climbing uphill and get out of here. Someone tell me I still can get out of here. Someone tell Lady Luck that I'm stuck here.
Again, I'm going to be such a broken record on this. And like, I don't love the backing music in this, but I think that the vocals carry this song anyways. So they do a great job of this one.
Agreed. The next song is Dadu, and as I was re-listening to prepare for this podcast, I am pretty sure that the opening lines that are given by the customer seeing the plant in the window, it's Nathan Lane, right?
Excuse me, I couldn't help noticing that strange and interesting plant. What is it?
It's an Audrey too.
I've never seen anything like it before.
No one has.
Where did you get it?
Well,
I was trying to Google.
Boy, does it sound like it if it's not him.
If it's not him, it is somebody doing a damn good impersonation because it really sounds like him. I can't imagine how that would have happened, but I want to know more.
Yeah. Like I would assume it's someone just doing an approximation. I don't know. Maybe he did step in and do like a one line recording on this album because he owed somebody a favor. I have no idea, but I had the same thoughts like, boy, that sounds like Nathan Lane, but I know he's not in this production.
And if he did just step in, you would think there'd be some article out there, somebody mentioning it, and I couldn't find anything. So it must not be, I guess, but that was so bizarre to have that double take.
I was just going to point out, I think I should have double checked this before because you just said it's like this thing. The song is called Dadu, but on the listing that I have, it's called Doo Doo, which I just think is like needlessly hilarious to me.
Yes, that is a strange choice or maybe a typo, but Doo Doo definitely makes you think it's going to be a very different kind of song.
There's another weird typo that comes up later too on the copy that I have.
So they need to have a better editor, is what you're saying.
Correct.
Okay. So next up after that is Grow For Me. Again, this is where some of those lyrics are that Hunter Foster makes much more clear than anybody else does. So here, I'd say this is the first example of where we're getting more of the book scenes incorporated into the tracks themselves. And this will be an ongoing theme throughout the rest of this album. But how do you feel about what was included, what wasn't included, how long the book scenes go on, and how effective it is for you?
I feel like I have a counter opinion on book scenes than what most people have. I actually enjoy them to be on my Broadway albums. Again, I think this stems back from being a teenager, not really having reliable internet service. So the only way I could really figure it out is if the album gave it to me, whether it was in liner notes or gave me book scenes, so I could kind of understand the context of what was going on. Which brings up hilarious stories of being like, "Oh, I thought this is what the show is about," and it was not what the show was about at all because I had made up a story in my head. So I actually think that for the most part on this album, I think the book scenes are not so extensive as to take away from the power of the songs, but give you enough context to let you know kind of what we're dealing with. I actually like the fact that they bring in a little bit more of the Mushnik and Seymour not real rivalry, but like tension that goes on.
Yeah.
And how that death kind of happens and goes down in the show, which you don't really get in that original off-Broadway album like at all. And there's some intros that happen here that are just, I feel like, extensions. There's even like additional lyrics or like stanzas that happen in this recording. So anyway, it's nice to have a more fuller idea of what this show actually was like. This is a very long way of me saying that I don't mind book scenes as long as like they're not like so extensive that I'm having to like skip 30 seconds multiple times to get to where the actual song is.
Yeah, overall I think it is a good amount of included book material on this album. In this song, it does bother me how long the sucking noises go on after he cuts his finger and you hear Seymour sucking on his thumb.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was going to bring up the exact same thing. It's like it's a little off-putting in this song.
It goes on for so long.
Hey, you're opening up. What made you do that? I think I know what made you do that. Well, I guess a few drops couldn't hurt. As long as you don't make a habit out of it or anything.
So, okay, we got the point. We can move on to the next bit now. It doesn't have to be as long as it is in the show because we don't have that visual of the plant reaching after him.
To the point where I thought somehow my stream was skipping. It's like, what is happening?
That's never a good sign if you have that thought.
But yeah, that's why I'm always so interested and why I love talking to people who have been like in the recording sessions for albums of like how they choose to include what they do versus what they decide to cut. And sometimes it's just like we only have 70 minutes to fill onto an album. So it's like something has to go because there's, 80 minutes of music. So classically, that's why a lot of Broadway albums were sped up back in the day so they could fit everything on.
Yeah, I do wish that was not. There are many casualties of that. I think the most egregious being the Follies original Broadway cast album is just an abomination. But
I agree. I mean, I liked the Follies album for years until I did my season on Follies and really discovered, oh, okay, I can see why people call this a bit of a Frankenstein of how they cobble that album together, because you would hope for something that's a little bit more complete so you can understand that show a little bit more, but also talking about like weird tempos and weird things going on there.
So I know, especially back in the day, they didn't record everything because they had limited time. They had more issues with physical materials. They weren't recording digitally. They were actually engraving as they were going. These days, I'm curious how frequently they are doing all of the work ahead of time to give the actors a cut down version of book scenes and abridgments in the music versus is it simpler to just let them do what they're used to doing and then it's going to take less time because you don't have to go back and redo takes because they are going against what they're normally used to, and then you just edit it together after. I'd imagine there's probably some combination of the two.
Yeah, I would assume so too. Like I don't know the answer to that necessarily, but like that's a science unto itself. The couple of people that I've been able to talk to on my show, and now I don't remember if that's appeared in the episodes or if it's stuff I cut out that we talked about before or after the recording. But I mean, a lot of consideration is still, even though it's digital recordings and I shouldn't even say most, a lot of people are engaging with it over like streaming apps. You still have to consider what the CD pressing is going to be able to fit. So you can't just keep recording and recording and recording. So there's that aspect of it. But for me, what was so eye-opening was also how much people consider, well, this is like the third or fourth recording of this revival. So what is going to make us stand apart? We don't want to just do the recording the same way it's always been done. So how can we stand out? So that sometimes is including book scenes. Sometimes that is including more of like the instrumental stuff. Sometimes that's just like reworking some orchestrations. So anyways, there's a whole lot of thought that actually goes into this stuff.
Yeah, I would love to know more about all that and understand it better. So if anybody's listening and wants to come on and talk about that, I would love to have you. Let me know. Next up, we have, it is a separate track on this album of WSKID. Most of the time, it's just included as the very beginning of the following track, You Never Know. Basically, just them listening to Seymour on the radio as they go into the song.
Yeah, this was the one where I thought that's like, oh, it's going to be a new song that I've never heard of. I don't know what this is. And then, yeah, it's just like the intro to that I'm used to. This is the other one that's misspelled on the Apple Music listing, because it's capital W and then lowercase SKID, which I think is supposed to be for like Skid Row and stuff like that. But for most radio stations, it should be all capitalized, should it not?
Yeah, it definitely should. So one of the things I love about this next track of You Never Know is that they modified it for the movie. And so what I got more used to hearing early on is the version that is called Some Fun Now. But a lot of the same melodies, a lot of the same lyrics are used. But it is definitely, I think, better in the context of the show to have this version of You Never Know. Especially it has some melody that will then be used as the intro to the next song for Audrey in Somewhere That's Green.
All the world used to screw him. Bip wham pow, now they interview him. And they clamor to put his remarks on the air.
And so it helps to tie those together. Whereas if you were to substitute Some Fun Now in your stage show, you would lose that because it does not have that bit of this song.
I just like the lyric, zowie wowie, holy cow. It all fits with all like that slang stuff from like the 50s, but it works.
I just enjoy listening to it. I think it's a fun song.
Yeah, You Never Know is just a fun song to listen to, I think. It's a nice little ensemble number, so, but nothing more than that.
Yeah, I appreciate the lyric that includes something out of Edgar Allan Poe that fits the meter so well. I love it.
Oh yeah, which I just want to say is actually not true. If you read enough Edgar Allan Poe, like that doesn't really make sense. But I could see Seymour thinking that.
Yeah, because he's not actually read any Poe.
No,
they're not teaching that in Skid Row.
Wow, pow, look out below. Don't it go show you never know.
So next we go into Somewhere That's Green, one of the probably more well-known songs from the show that Audrey is singing.
I believe you mean Part of Your World is actually what this song is called.
Yes. I mean,
what is the recurring thing? There was someone made the joke or the quip that Part of Your World should just be called Somewhere That's Wet.
Yeah. Howard Ashman was the one that crystallized a long-standing tradition into I think he's the one that popularized the title of the I Want song. Not that he came up with that, but
Sure.
As far as putting it into the lexicon of, no, you should have this in your show, it makes sense that he would be very good at having those, but maybe have some common threads that he weaves across different projects.
I mean, as quippy as I'm being here right now, this is one of the highlights of the show. And I think Carrie Butler does such a great job with this song. Her voice sounds so great on it. And this walks this very fine line. This is such a great masterclass on songwriting because it has to walk this super fine line of having incredibly funny lyrics, but also be heartbreaking at the same time. So I think it's able to do that, reveal so much about character from Audrey, and that huge, enormous 12-inch screen always makes me crack up.
Yeah.
He rakes and trims the grass. He loves to mow and weed. I cook like Betty Crocker, and I look like Donna Reed.
I love her performance on this album. I watched a not great quality bootleg of this Broadway production, and it does not read the same in that, at least in that recording. It comes across a little bit more on the earnest side and not as much of the funny. Doesn't feel like, it's more of an uncomfortable funny, like we're making fun of Audrey instead of laughing along with her at the jokes.
Right.
But definitely, it might have just been an off night for that recording, because on the cast album, she definitely nails it and it sounds great. It gives you everything you need it to.
Mm-hmm.
So one line that I had never thought about really until I saw it this past winter is when she sings, "I'm his December bride."
Mm-hmm.
That seems like a reference to a, May-December romance.
Right.
And how important is it, do you think, that Audrey be substantially older than Seymour for the context of the dynamic that they have in this show together?
So this is a great question because I think in order for that lyric to really work, I think she does. I think this needs to be someone, I mean, you say substantially. I would say that at the very least, we should be talking about someone who is like in their late 30s with an early 20s Seymour or something like that.
Yeah.
If not like into their 40s, like it has to be that thing. And if Seymour's in his 30s, then we're pushing up into like the 60s. I think it's important for that lyric to work. That all being said, the original movie, they're the same age. So this is like an invention for the stage show that I guess works because of who they cast in that original show. So I don't know. I'm of two minds a little bit of this. Is like, it's something that was invented for this show as far as the character goes. And otherwise, this kind of feels like just a throwaway line that doesn't really make sense of why she would be saying that, or she has a very different idea of what a May-December romance means.
That could be as well. It definitely makes more sense that Ellen Greene kept playing the role for so long. Once I realized that, Audrey is older.
Mm-hmm.
So even as the actress gets older, it still works because that's kind of the point.
I just like all the other references that they do because what is it like? Oh my gosh, it's something and looks like Donna Reed. I forget what the lead up to that lyric is.
Cooks like Betty Crocker and look like Donna Reed.
That's right, it is. Yeah, cooks like Betty Crocker and looks like Donna Reed, which again is such a great like encapsulation of it, which I have to assume as every year passes, more and more people are like, I have no idea what that means.
Yeah.
But it's still great for me. And I loved like Snuggles Up watching Lucy. Like I don't know. All of the stuff that they're referencing in this works for me. It puts it in such a time and place. But it is very specific 50s references that are losing their hold, I think, by each passing day.
Yeah, the plastic on the furniture as well. That I'm sure is a very foreign concept to a lot of
right.
more modern audiences.
Right. I will also say, I wanted to say about this song in particular, last thing, not that I'm like a big fan of this TV show, but I remember that there is a moment in Family Guy where they sing this song verbatim. They don't even make any changes. And it's the Mr. Herbert character who, sorry to say, is a pedophile singing to Chris Griffin. So, like, it is weirdly a weird context for the song to be sung in. But again, they don't make any changes to the lyrics.
That's right. I do remember that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then they had Shapoopy that they did the full song. So I think Seth MacFarlane is definitely a musical theater fan.
I know. Well, this is because, like, Seth, he's such a musical theater stan that it's ridiculous that he was able to make this crude cartoon be his calling card.
Yeah. So next up is Close for Renovation. Not a whole lot that I have to say about it. It's good for moving the story along, but it's not a whole lot of a song on its own.
No, yeah, I know. Most people call this like the little throwaway song or a skippable song. For me, I always love it. I don't know what it is about the melody that really engrosses me, and I love the fact that they rhyme flirtily with COD.
Yes, a song like this is at the right tempo for a lot of those fun little word plays that you can throw in and pack a lot of them into a short amount of time. And so it's definitely a fun show-off moment for Howard Ashman.
Oh, for sure.
We're close for decoration, cause fortune has been smiling. So now we're due for painting, new plumbing and retiling. We'll make the ship show place of a little shop, and then tomorrow we'll be open again.
But then you get the huge song. We get the dentist song.
Yes, a very fun number. Again, like I said before, Steve Martin's version is emblazoned on my mind.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Douglas Sills does a lot of funny and interesting things with it, even just in, without the visuals on this recording. I appreciate that he's taking it in a different direction than some other Orans have, and I find it works pretty well.
I agree.
I am your dentist, and I enjoy the career that I picked. I am your dentist, and I get off on the pain I inflict.
I agree, and I think this is only song that I would make the case for that I enjoy more on this recording than the original Off-Broadway, because I've always found the Off-Broadway one a little bit too quick. again, it's like a tempo thing where they're hitting the jokes too quickly, so they don't let them land too much. And I like some of the book scene that actually happens around this that gets cut out of that original version too. So I don't know, this feels like a more complete version. It's funnier, and I like the differences that he does. So anyways, I'm a big fan of this song on this album.
Yeah, and I think in the original recording, I think he's going for like a James Dean cool guy kind of impression.
Yeah.
But it just makes a lot of his line delivery feel very flat and doesn't have as much personality. Whereas if you lean into how crazy this person is, I think it's a lot more fun for the audience.
Mm-hmm.
So then Mushnik and Son, another song that was cut from the movie, is a fun little pastiche number where we get a lot of Yiddish terms. We get very typical Jewish instrumentation that is being used. Maybe not, like you said before, not the most high quality sound of those instruments, but we're getting that impression from it.
No.
And it's a weird song, and I don't like the line, officially, I'm your brat. But otherwise, I think it's an enjoyable little change from the type of songs we've been hearing.
Come true. Mushnik and his boy chick, you. What business will do for FTD?
Yeah, it's a fun little number here too. I find that this song in particular always works better visually on stage than it does in recorded form. At least that's been my history with this song, where this is one of those ones that was skippable for me personally on any of the on the previous recording that I've listened to. But anytime I've seen a production, I've seen like three versions of Little Shop in my lifetime. This always kills. This is always one that makes the audience erupt in laughter and applause.
Yeah, it definitely has a lot of opportunities for physical comedy with Mushnik pulling Seymour around, and not terribly surprising, I guess, then that it does so much better in person.
Yeah, it's that hard one. Wish there was other examples I could just pull out of my head here right now, but I find that there always is that case where there's a song that works better visually than it does just listening to it.
Yep, I feel like that's always going to be an issue to deal with for any show ever.
Mm-hmm. There's also a bit of a problem I have with dance breaks on recorded albums, which is those are so thrilling to see alive and in person. And I almost across the board can't stand them in recorded form because it's just this would be way better if I could actually see all the cool dancing that's happening right now.
Very fair. After this, we go into Feed Me, Git It. So this is one for me where I feel like we get a little bit too heavy of the book scenes,
right,
both before and during. And I wouldn't necessarily cut it by a lot, but there are definitely some trims that I think could make it just move a little bit more naturally and feel not as aware that, there's a show going on that I'm not able to see.
Yeah, because this is one of the few tracks that's over 5 minutes, right? And this one goes for a while.
Yeah, it's definitely a longer one.
But I get what you're saying here, because a lot of this stuff is, again, visual. They're referring to things that we're not actually seeing. I feel bad saying this. I just don't really love the Audrey 2 performer in this recording. So, in fact, I think there's a few notes that he hits that are flat. So, but that's a performance problem that I have.
If you want a rationale, it isn't very hard to see. Show looks like plant food to me. The guy show looks like plant food to me. The guy show looks like plant food to me.
I will say one last thing. Well, I'll probably have a few more things to say, but you had an issue with a lyric. This is my sign that I have an issue with a lyric, so I apologize, Howard Ashman. I hate that he says Harley Machine.
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense to me.
I was trying to think, would there have been a time that would have been a common slang? And I don't think so. I think it's just need things that rhyme with green, and it's right there. So
that's exactly what it feels like. It's I need a rhyme to fit here, so I'm going to call it Harley Machine instead of just Harley Bike or Harley Chopper even I would accept, but...
Or just Harley. We don't need... You can make that work. Just add another word before Harley and end in... I'd rather have a less perfect rhyme, but have it make more sense.
Yeah. Anyways, every composer is allowed to have a dud here and then.
Yes. So now that Seymour has been convinced to feed the plant a body, we get one of my favorite scenes, which is now it's just the gas.
What we have here is an ethical dilemma. Unless I help him get the mask removed, he doesn't have a prayer. True, the gun was never fired, but the way events transpired, I can finish him with simple as a fair. What we have here is a tricky moral problem. Do I help remove the mask or let him go for lack of air? Couldn't shoot him when I tried, but the fates are on my side. I can off the guy by staying in the chair.
I have loved this since I first heard it, and I'm very sad that it's not in the movie. It's definitely my favorite that got cut. lot, but it's also, again, this is one where I think it works very well on the album, but there's so much physical comedy that comes with how they choose to do the gas mask that I've seen versions where it looks like the kind of old-timey scuba diver helmet with the tubes coming off of it, or different versions that you can make it fun.
You're totally right. Every version I have ever seen does something different with the mask. There's never like a thing that everybody does. It's like always like, how can we make our mask stand out in this production? And sometimes it's like super elaborate, sometimes it's super minimal. So I'm always interested, like, what are they gonna do with the mask this time?
The current off-Broadway production is my favorite that I've seen. I'm not sure if you've seen some version of the Marvel character MODOK. It's basically just a big head with tiny arms and...
Oh God, okay, sure.
And so the current version, the mask is set up to be like a weird magnifying glass, so the face is huge, and it's kind of in a square, and it just reminds me so much of MODOK. And that's
so fun.
I was astounded when I saw that, and I was laughing so hard.
That's what I mean. There seems to be so much creativity around this, where I feel like the script just says like, do what you want, and then people just take that to heart.
But that's what makes it fun to have different productions, and you can compare and talk about what works and what doesn't for you, and the joys of theater.
That's right.
This is one this is probably the biggest example. I would agree with you on the orchestrations feeling very thin and disappointing, because there's several moments where in other recordings, it's really kind of maximizing the drama of this absurd situation. And on this recording, it just kind of feels perfunctory, and that is a lost opportunity in my opinion.
I know. It's something that I just miss fully with this recording, where it's like this, these great vocal performances that are going on, and it basically being like canned music that's playing in the background.
Yep. And then after that, we have the Act 1 finale, and then coming back from intermission, the Entr'acte, neither of which is very long, and not a whole lot that's different from what we've heard already. Any thoughts on either of those?
Yeah, just kind of what am I trying to say? Things that have happened before in the show, or just like hearing some music that has happened already. Reprisals.
Yeah. And then we move into Call Back in the Morning. This is the biggest skip for me. It feels tacked on, like they said, we need to add 3 minutes to the show. Just write a number and put it in here. It doesn't matter. And it's unfortunate, because I think they could have done more with it.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I guess it's like, this is, I guess, proving what I'm about to say, because it is so forgettable. And I'm very sure this is not on the original off-Broadway album. Even though I've seen multiple versions of this show, I don't ever remember them doing this song either. So it is like not even try to grab a hold of my brain in any type of way to be remembered. It's not giving us any new information. It's kind of just a rehash of music we've already heard. I wouldn't even say there's even fun rhymes in this. So it's like, boy, would I cut this in a heartbeat if I was doing a production of it.
And the pacing of the song tends to be rather slow. There's large gaps between lyrics. And they do, typically they'll do some kind of creative stage play with multiple telephones to make it trying to be interesting, but I don't think it ever truly works.
Flowers for a prom corsage.
Flowers for an entourage.
Flowers to the funeral home.
Leaving from St. Andrew's Roman Catholic Church at 9th and Vine.
$40 hold the line.
First thing in the morning,
Fine.
they'll be there in the morning.
Can you hold the Rose Bowl?
And I agree, this is one I would just probably cut if I was in that position of making my own show.
Especially because you have, Suddenly Seymour, which is like an iconic song that comes really quickly afterwards.
Yeah, so let's get into Suddenly Seymour, because this is arguably the biggest song from the show that has, huge life in show tune Sundays and musical Mondays and whatever other version of that you have. It's a classic. The version on stage, I think, is interesting because it moves much more briskly, and it's kind of a driving feel to it. Versus in the movie, I prefer the movie version where you're kind of sitting in the moment and feeling the emotions of the song a bit more. I was kind of surprised that after the movie, the next production didn't try to mix those two together a little bit more.
Yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, I think, even with the title as it is and what the lyrics still are, this is a sudden dawning realization. At least that's how I interpret it, I guess, from Audrey. So I agree with you in that I like that slower pace of the movie feeling to it a little bit more. Like, just really slow this down and being like, oh my gosh, like he's been here the entire time.
And even just a little bit slower makes it feel much more present and not, oh, we're just rushing past this.
Right.
The stage show version is conducted in 4, while the movie is conducted in 2, which automatically makes it feel slower. But be that as it may.
I mean, you have to get to Suppertime.
Yes.
I mean, they're getting through this material.
We're getting hungry. We got to have Suppertime. And this is one that I think is the best use of layering the book scenes in with the song on the album, because you have the way that the music is set up, there are kind of gaps in between lyrics, and so it's perfect for Audrey 2 to sing something, and then you have Mushnik giving a couple lines and then go back to Audrey 2, and it just, I think the back and forth works really well to give you that feeling of what's going on and keep it really exciting.
He's got your number now.
I saw it last week and didn't think twice.
He knows just what you've done.
And the little red dot seemed innocent enough.
You got no place to hide.
But now I catch you kissing the dentist's girlfriend.
You got nowhere to run.
And it begins to look like a motive.
He knows your life a crime.
Once he's out of the way, you move in, right?
I think it's supper time.
And yeah, and it kind of really fills in that choice that Seymour eventually has, which is like, no, I am fully going to go after what I want versus like, admitting something that I've done that I know is wrong, that I've crossed the line. And even though Mushnik throughout the show has been shown to be vain and like really only after money more than anything else, he doesn't really have that much affection for Seymour, like not cruelly.
Yeah.
He doesn't do anything overtly like evil either to warrant like being eaten by a plant. And I think his death scene is actually pretty gruesome, even in audio form.
Yeah, the knock on the plant and then just slowly get swallowed up really is a rotten way to go. So then the next track is The Meek Shall Inherit. Another one, this is the biggest earworm of the album for me. I woke up this morning with different parts of this song just coming through my head over and over, whether I liked it or not.
Hey, Seymour Krillbone, you Prince, you. My name is Bernstein, I'm with NBC. I came down here to convince you to do a weekly TV show for me. Seymour Krillbone's gardening tips. You like it? I love it. For half an hour on Sundays at 4. TV's first home gardening program. You'll make a mint and our ratings will soar.
This is one where I think it moves a little bit slowly on the album because you're not getting the visual gags from the stage show. And I like the tempo of the movie version where we kind of condense the other people into one bit and then focus more of the song on Seymour. But it's definitely a different vibe. You want to focus the song.
I agree with you on the earworm quality of this one. I always sing about how, and he's a meek little guy. I always like how they phrase that in the song. And it's kind of like this like stopover as we get into like the, last 30 minutes of the show. It's kind of like this showcase, I guess, of the urchins and everyone else.
Yeah, before you have to buckle in for the rest of the roller coaster that's coming.
You know the Meek are gonna get what's coming to 'em. You know the Meek are gonna get what's coming to 'em. You know the Meek are gonna get what's coming to 'em. Bye. Bye.
So to kind of start off that roller coaster, we have a little tiny bit of a song called Sominex that Audrey sings as she is looking for Seymour, and then that leads into the Suppertime reprise that culminates in Audrey 2 and Audrey in a battle for life that Seymour then comes and interrupts.
I couldn't sleep. I took a Sominex, but voices in my head kept saying, "Go to Seymour, talk to Seymour."
I mean, you can tell so easily through context clues that it's embarrassing how long I was like, what is a Sominex? I had no frame of reference for what that even meant for like years of my life before I just looked it up and I'm like, oh, it's a sleeping pill. Okay, that makes way more sense.
Yeah.
And actually so obvious once you know what that is. And then, yeah, we get into that Suppertime 2, which I'm trying to think. This is basically all the whole killing scene, right? Is we're like getting in and Seymour eventually like sacrifices himself.
I think it's most of it, and then it kind of finishes in the Somewhere That's Green reprise that follows.
Right. Yeah.
That is sometimes lumped together. On here, they're separate tracks. I think this is one example that I very much agree with you on. This is not my favorite Audrey 2. I think the delivery of the lines trying to entice Audrey closer feels much more. If I heard a plant talking to me that way, I would not assume it has good intentions. I would be like, this seems iffy. I'm going to back away. Versus, being much more, oh no, I'm okay, just come on closer. And so I think that's a weird choice that does not work as well for me.
Oh, relax and go with it, doll. Do me a favor, will you, sweetheart?
A favor?
I need some water in the worst way. Look at my branches. I'm a goner, honey.
Again, not to always bring it back to that original off-Broadway, but love the line delivery of like, sure you do. When he says like, I don't know anyone that deserves to die.
Yeah, so especially for shows like this where there are multiple recordings and only one of them is a Broadway cast album, I am fully on board with exploring all of the versions that are out there because it's kind of silly to try not to. We're not listening to this album in a vacuum and we shouldn't pretend like we are. So bring it up all you want.
Not to derail this too much, but because you've started this show talking about cast albums specifically, do you know offhand what Broadway show has the most recordings? And we'll just keep it easy, like just Broadway and revivals or like off Broadway, like just like that. We're not going to talk like alternate like London or like different languages.
I think it might be Fiddler or Gypsy. Those both have many revivals, and most of the revivals have an album.
Many years and multiple revivals.
Yeah. West Side Story's been revived a bunch, but a couple of those don't have albums. I'd have to look for sure.
Has Oklahoma been revived a bunch?
I think yes, but only a couple of them have had cast albums. The 1980 did, and the 2018 one did. But other ones, a lot of the Oklahoma revivals were before routine cast albums for revivals was a thing. That's a good question, though.
Well, fascinating.
Hey, after we finished recording, I checked, and Gypsy does indeed have the most Broadway cast albums with 5. The original 1959 production and the revivals in 1989, 2003, 2008, and 2024. Second place actually goes to The King and I with 4, original 1951 production, and the revivals in 1977, 96, and 2015. If we include off-Broadway productions, The King and I is also at 5 with a 1964 Lincoln Center revival, and Carousel and Finian's Rainbow each have 4. There are many shows with 3 albums, and Fiddler is part of that group, so at least I wasn't totally wrong.
I like that there's this other track called Bigger Than Hula Hoops, which, again, they're just breaking up what I'm used to into, like, shorter songs.
Yeah, which I'm fine with that, especially if you're not someone who wants to hear more of the book scenes. It's an easier option to skip it that way. But it is, to your point of trying to piece together what the show is just from the cast album, this is a very important track to know where this has all been coming from, where it's going, and to really tie it all together in a way that you have a shot of understanding what the story is without seeing the show for yourself.
Yeah. And it's the same actor doing all 3 performances. I think it's 3 people who come in, right?
Yeah. Typically, the actor that is playing the dentist is playing many, many other roles, including multiples in the same scene. So I think a lot of this is Douglas Sills.
Does a good job. I like he fully commits to the different voices.
Yes, I think he's phenomenal. I saw him in War Paint on Broadway in 2017, whenever that was. But I thought he was fantastic in that as well. I think he's underrated as a Broadway performer for sure. So then, one of the best finales of a musical, I think, is the Don't Feed the Plants finale Ultimo.
I agree.
It is just so much fun to listen to. The lyrics are fun. The music is amazing.
Yeah, the fact that you open up with like Downtown and end with this song is like you have some great bookends that go with this show.
And the lyrics are walking that line perfectly of this is kind of horrifying, but also we're not taking it that seriously. And that's a very hard line to walk, as we've seen other shows try and fail, and it should not be overlooked. I think if this was not such a good finale, the show as a whole would have a much less of a lasting impact because people would not leave the theater with that same excitement of this weird show I just saw, but I loved it. It would be more like, that was a weird show. How do I feel about it?
It's so true because honestly, I think that this show is top heavy, in my opinion, where most of the best stuff happens in Act 1. But even the good stuff that happens in Act 2, like I think you and I agree with the Meek shall inherit. And then all the rest of the stuff is like, it's good. It's not like it's bad, but it's also not like stuff that I'm re-listening to a whole lot, if I'm being perfectly honest. And then you get to this like epic like finale, and it's like you leave the theater and like, that was amazing. That was so good.
And you don't think about it too often, but it's pretty uncommon for the finale of a show to be new music. It's almost always a reprise of some kind, maybe with new lyrics, maybe not.
True.
And this is entirely new that we haven't seen the whole show, which is a choice because often you want to make things more hummable by having it repeated several times. And I love that they were like, no, we have a song that's so good, it's not going to matter if it's the first time they've heard it. They're going to still walk out of the theater singing it.
They may offer you fortune and fame, love and money and instant acclaim. But whatever they offer you, don't be the less.
Do you know why they call it finale Ultimo?
So I'm guessing to distinguish it from the Act 1 finale, that was a more common thing at one point that they would call it that. And I think the fact that the overall pastiche of the show is back to the 50s, my guess is that they wanted to, why not just throw in that little nod as well of naming the finale like they might have back then more often.
Right.
Especially back when there were 3-act shows. You'd have the Act 1 finale, the Act 2 finale, and then the finale Ultimo, which thank God we don't have many 3-act shows anymore.
No, in fact, who was I having this? Boy, it might have actually been you that I had this conversation with. I just don't remember now. I actually have this pet theory that we'll see more and more musicals be 1-acts. I know producers don't necessarily want that, but I feel like the whole idea of writing a 2-act show is becoming more and more passé as time goes on.
Yeah, I think they're at least having to justify 2 acts more now. Whereas before, it's just that's the default. And now people have gotten a taste of good 1-act musicals. And they're like, well, if you can give me all the fun and great music and story I need in 1 act, you need to justify me spending another hour and a half in these uncomfortable seats.
Right. I do want to call it the fact that they, at least on the Apple Music version, I don't know if this is true for all the other ones, they have these 5 bonus tracks that are on this album. Is that true for all the versions?
So mine is also through Apple originally, so I'm not sure which versions might not have it, if any. But I did kind of want to briefly go through those because they're very interesting tracks, I think.
I'm assuming these are alternate versions of songs that ended up being either rewritten to be something different. That's what I'm understanding them to be, or do you know?
I'm not sure, but I tend to think of, so a lot of this is coming from the world of Sondheim, because in the Finishing the Hat and Look, I Made a Hat books, you get some commentary about why different songs were cut, and a lot of that then is applicable across the industry as well. But you kind of have songs that are cut because they were not that good, songs that were cut because they just needed to trim time off and this was not necessary, or songs that they ended up going in a different direction. And I think you kind of get all 3 versions of that in these demos at the end of this album.
I agree, because you have this one called A Little Dental Music, which absolutely feels like we're cutting this for time. We do not need him to be singing a verse out here while he's waiting in the dentist chairs before he goes and gets into the chair itself.
A little dental music, your appointment's for 11, but you'll wait in here till noon. The swooning strains of Andre Previn, next it's Mantovani, after him you couldn't care. You're in for brutal torture when it's your turn. When it's your turn.
Next.
It's your turn in the chair.
Actually, I think it's a great song.
It's fun, yeah.
But it just does not match the tone. And you're going to slam people out of the action to do that and then have to jump back in. It doesn't fit, but it's such a good song.
The Worse He Treats Me feels like a workshop version of Somewhere That's Green for me. Like this, I feel would have been Audrey's song.
Yeah.
And Somewhere That's Green is just, I think, a better all-around tune.
The worse he treats me, the more he loves me. It sounds unusual, I know.
Yeah, I think that's one where they realized this is not striking the tone that we want for this moment. And it almost feels like that was a version that kind of incorporated some of the dentist number, like maybe before they decided to give him his own song about his sadism. And kind of we get both of those concepts in the one song, or we can separate them out and each have their own moment, which I think is ultimately the right call.
And then I have to be honest, I don't remember what these other ones are. We'll have Tomorrow. What is that one?
So my impression is that it was a different idea for how the ending was going to go, because it kind of feels like before the final battle of sorts that they're talking about the future they're going to have. And I think it's pretty. It's a nice song, especially when Alan Menken and Howard Ashman are singing together and harmonizing. It's a nice little moment.
We'll have a family
definitely, it feels like it's from a totally different show.
Right.
And I found a hobby.
Is that the one where he's talking about him killing a bunch of people?
No, I think he's just talking about how essentially the first couple lines of the Dentist song, that when I was young, I was a bad little kid. My mama knows funny things I did.
Oh, you're right. Yeah.
It's essentially expanding that into being a full song. And then the part about him being a dentist is just a throwaway at the end. So kind of inverting which part of that story gets more attention.
It started when, a lad of 10, I told my friends I'll meet ya at Dr. Blood's Revenge, which was a gruesome horror feature. And when I saw the awesome torture chamber in that flick, I found I got a hard-on while the other kids got sick.
Not a bad song, but
Dentist is a better song.
not as engaging as the Dentist version. Yeah. And then the last one is Bad, which
Bad is the one where it's probably Seymour singing about all the bad things he's doing, right?
I think it was in the place of where, like for the movie, they put Mean Green Mother from Outer Space.
Oh, okay.
Because there are a couple lines about being 10 feet tall and green. So I think it's Audrey 2 singing. And it's just a much inferior version of, hey, I'm a bad guy. And that's kind of all it is.
You know Godzilla was a monster, he was mighty mean. But even I had to respect him, cause the boy was green. But when he said to me, hey Audrey, you ain't all that tough, I had to show that leaping lizard I was tough enough. He said, Gad, don't get mad, boy, you're bad.
So I think that's one that was definitely just not up to snuff. And they took another crack at it in a different way, which was good.
Yeah, you see, this is such the fun thing about musicals that only nerds really get into, which is this whole idea of cut songs or reworked songs and stuff like that. Is a lot of times it's not a bad song, it's just an incorrect song.
Yeah.
It's like there's something that can fit in here better, or this is actually detracting from the show as a whole. So it's better if we just take it out and just focus on the stuff that's working.
Yeah. And it definitely makes you understand more in the early days why everybody had all those trunk songs.
Yeah, right.
So like, well, I'll write it. And if they use it here, great. If not, we'll find another place for it, some other show. It'll be just fine.
That's right. Yeah. So overall, I mean, it's I think that this album is at least worth going through and listening to once, and then definitely going into some of these cut songs to kind of fully understand how this show was formed into the way it is now.
Yeah, especially if you don't know the show, haven't seen a version of it, this is a good version of the album to get enough of those book scenes to really have a better shot at understanding the story, which, you know, if you're coming at it fresh, that is a very valuable thing to get your head in the right space to know what am I listening to? All right. So we'll start off with talking about the score quality. So separating out the music and the lyrics, out of 15 points, what would you give the music for this show? So Alan Menken's contribution.
Oh, okay. So I have to say, like this show is one of my all-time favorites. So sometimes it's hard to get out of my bias of that. But honestly, out of 15, I would probably I'm going to say 13. I'll give it a 13 out of 15.
That's what I was thinking as well. There are a few moments here and there that aren't quite as good as the rest of the score, and it's not perfect, but it is pretty good. So then out of 15 points for the lyrics, what would you give this?
Yeah, I think I'm going to do the same thing. There's only a couple of lyrics specifically that are like, ooh, maybe they could have tried something else or made like that Harley machine that I've already brought up. There's a couple other ones like that throughout. There's like, I don't know if that hits my ear super correctly. And definitely if you look at like the totality of Howard Ashman's career, I think that he would eventually become like very top tier. And this feels like him getting his sea legs in a way. So I'll give 13 out of 15 for this one too.
All right, I like that. Regarding the performances on this album, as far as technical performance, the quality of the voice, just the pleasantness to listen to the album, out of 15 points, what would you give this?
Sorry, does this incorporate the music as well, like the backing music, or just the vocal performances?
I would say everything, kind of all parts of the listening experience on a separating out the storytelling from it, just the performance and enjoyment of the performance itself.
Yeah, so honestly, as I've kind of said throughout this, I think that they have these really all-star performers in this. So it's kind of hard not to do a good job with this score. So the performances, I don't have a whole lot of negatives to say. As a whole package, though, there's the Audrey 2 performer who I don't think rises to the level of everybody else. So that kind of drags it down a little bit. I don't love the canned music throughout. I think that pulls it down. So as an overall audio enjoyment, I'm going to say a 10 out of 15, I think.
I think that's very fair. And then the other kind of flip side of this, not just technical performance, but acting, how much of the character are you getting through their performance? How much is it propelling the story by giving you an idea of who they are as characters on the stage, not just voices on an album?
Sure.
Out of 10 points, how much would you give them for that?
Give a 7 out of 10.
Yeah, I like that. Especially Carrie Butler does a very good job of giving us the different notes of Audrey.
Yeah.
And Douglas Sills, particularly when he is the dentist, is giving a lot of variation and fun bits to work off of. So I like that score. So getting into the storytelling part of things. So this is going to be 2 parts. The first is, can you get a sense of what the story of the show is through the album alone without having to have seen the show? And then the second part will be, is the impression that you get of that accurate to what the show really is, as far as you've seen productions of it? So that's easier to answer.
I think it does too. I honestly think it does. Like, they give enough of the book scenes in here to really fully flesh out what the plot is without getting like ultra specific about how some of the songs fit together. But yeah, with the music and lyrics, the songs that they include, the book scenes that they include, I think this gives a pretty full understanding of what this show is and what it's about. And you would not be that surprised if you went and saw a production of it. You wouldn't be like surprised by things that happen in it. I think this show works better too because there is that bit of a prologue to like set the scene a little bit.
Yeah.
And literally, there's songs that tell you this is literally what's happening right now. So they're like very descriptive of what's going on, especially that end song too, about like this is what the plants are going off and doing.
Yep.
So that's a long way of saying yes. I think this is giving you a fairly accurate representation of what the show is and what it's about.
Yeah, I think as far as, so I have this divided up as getting a sense of the story is 15 points, and then if it's accurate is out of 5.
Mm-hmm.
So I think accuracy, what you get from this album is the show very well. So I think a 5 out of 5 for that is good.
Yes.
I might take a little bit off for the sense of story just because the urchins are such a strong presence on the album and it's never really clear who they are without seeing the show, that could be confusing for some people. Are they actually in the show? Are they just narrators who are outside? And the answer is kind of both, but it's that's the main thing that I think is a little confusing.
I know. That's a hard thing. It's like when you see the show, it's like you kind of get it, and then you try and explain like it to anybody else. It's really hard to like, they're in the show, but not really in the show, but they're important, but also not that important at the same time. It's like,
yeah,
it's bizarre.
And that's where the lighting, the choreography is very good at letting you know, like that. This is why stage is so fun, is you can do these things where even without changing costumes, it can be made very clear who's who and what this is real, this is not real, and those kinds of things. So I think I'd probably give it a 14 out of 15.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Because the bits that are not clear are not that important to the overall story. And then for the recording quality, this is kind of for the most part, starting at 10 and taking away points for anything that's necessary. Is the audio quality good considering the time it was recorded? Obviously, we're not going to try to compare something from 1945 with today, but
no, fair enough.
For the roughly the time period that we're in, is it recorded well?
I mean, I think it is recorded well. I think the other thing you have to answer with that, though, is like, do I like the recording?
Yeah.
Sometimes that's a very different question that you're asking. I mean, honestly, I would probably give it an 8 out of 10, maybe 7 if I was being truly salty about it. Because I don't think there's anything wrong with the mix necessarily. I just have issues with, their choices and how they were going to record the music itself.
Yeah, and I don't know, like to your point of the orchestra sometimes feeling a little tinny, is that because of how it was played? Like, are there a lot of synthesizers being used for that? Or is it that they were not recorded well and that's why it sounds that way?
It feels like it's mostly synthesizers in this album.
Yeah, and there's only 11 musicians on the album, so that, considering the wide array of sounds we get, it would make sense for more of that to be synth than anything else. So yeah, I think, so for the audio quality, 8 out of 10, and then for the mix, I'm trying to be objective because it's a lot better than the other versions of this album.
Mm-hmm.
The original Off-Broadway has several parts that are not balanced as well as one might like. But I think overall there's only a couple moments where I wish something was a little bit more to the forefront or not quite as prominent. So I think, 8 or 9 would probably be reasonable.
Sure.
And then, so the last little bit, the album artwork for this production specifically, out of 5 points, how well do you think that this captures the show, makes you want to listen to the album?
So this is so hard. I mean, because it's a revival, I think a revival is doing something different than if this was an original piece that's trying to invite you into the theater. Nowadays, when people say we're going to do Little Shop of Horrors, it's like, oh, it's the big man-eating plant show. Like, everyone kind of knows that that's what it is. And so I have never seen a version of Little Shop of Horrors that doesn't emphasize the fact that there is going to be a man-eating plant. Like, that is the forefront. You're seeing the Venus flytrap as the thing that they're marketing. So this does a really good job of like, oh yeah, there's Audrey too. I love the colors. I like how it's, up front. I think the artwork does a good job. I have my own personal thing where I enjoy them showing Seymour and Audrey in the artwork too, although that doesn't happen as much. It usually is just the plant. And I think it gives you a good sense of it, like being like this laughing plant. The font gives you an idea that it is both like comic, because it uses a semi-Comic Sans font, and then the horrors is in like a drippy blood type of font. So it gives you that idea that this is both comedic but also horrific at the same time. So I don't know, it does a good job of communicating what this show is about. I have my little quibbles here and there, but like for me, it would probably be a 4 out of 5 as far as the artwork goes.
Yeah, I agree. Objectively, it all works well. Something about it does not pull me in as much as some albums, and I can't quite put my finger on that. Maybe some of it is the things that you mentioned, but it's definitely doing a better job than the Assassins album. So I know you've voiced your displeasure with that album in the past.
Okay. Yeah, but that 0 out of 5 album cover, it's so bad.
So with all of that, that brings us to a total score of 83 out of 100. So not bad.
Yeah. Are you ranking these? Are you like putting them into like a master list at all?
Yes. So the idea is that at the end of the season, we'll take all of the rankings that we've combined, put them in order, and then have a wrap-up episode that will say, do we agree with these rankings? Does this kind of pass the sniff test? Because they're all being graded individually, not put in a ranking order, and then see if it actually comes out the way that it feels like it should.
Yeah. This is a heavy hitter of a year, because you have like Wicked and Avenue Q and Caroline or Change and trying to think, Boy from Oz.
Yep. Also Bombay Dreams, which does not get a lot of attention, but so it's a good mix of big hits, medium, decently well known within the theater community, but not maybe as much outside of it. And then a couple that people might not know at all, like Taboo.
Right. The only thing I know about Taboo is that that's Boy George, right?
Yeah.
But it had like Rosie O'Donnell as a producer.
Yeah, they put it on in London. She saw it there and loved it so much that she independently produced it to come to Broadway.
And then it flopped? Is that what happened?
Yeah, it didn't do very well at all. Go figure. They also retooled it a bunch for Broadway, which is interesting considering that she loved it so much over there, and then they made a lot of changes, but oh well.
I love this. No change.
Yeah. Well, Kyle, thank you so much for being on my nice new podcast here. I've already said it before, but I'll say it again. Everyone should go listen to Putting It Together. It is a wonderful time, and you have plenty of a back catalog to catch up on. Where else would you like people to stay in touch with you if you would like them to at all, Kyle?
Honestly, at this point in my life, I am trying to like disengage with most social media. So honestly, the only thing that I regularly keep up with is my own personal Instagram, and even that is like sporadic at best. But if you want to, it's the Kyle Marshall. That's Marshall with 2 L's.
All right, perfect. Well, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much. This was fun.
Thank you for listening to The Little Things You Hear Together. You can follow the podcast on Instagram at Little Things You Hear Together, and you can also email littlethingsyouheartogether@gmail.com. We are available wherever you get your podcasts, so please like and subscribe so you don't miss any of the fun. Join me next week when we'll be talking about the 2003 original Broadway cast album for The Boy from Oz. Until then, I hope you find someplace that screams.